So I'll talk about the dimensions that this problem may appear, uh, because the sensibilities of people are actually shifting to this particular topic these days, and sometimes they might be unable to present their words in a way that is comprehensive and people understand it. So this idea of actually creating a unique story for everyone is basically what some people might call national identity. Creating a universal value system for Nigeria, creating a set of beliefs that people actually adopt. They may say they want to create a unifying religion, they may say they want to create a unifying language, they must say they want to create a unifying belief, but this is the same topic it is trying to address: cultural instability that actually exists within the country. Like I said, most post-colonial countries share this problem. And I want to really talk about once more the political implications of tribalism. I will use some countries as examples. One lady I had a communication with went on Jara Peterson's podcast to talk about why colonization isn't the problem of Africa. But if you've understood what I've been talking about in the last 4 episodes, you will understand that we would not be in this problem if Africans were not colonized and formed in the way the countries were formed. Jammed together with ethnic groups they do not get along with. And in this woman prospectus, while talking to Jordan Peterson, she mentioned Singapore. Why Singapore was colonized and it was everything was okay with it, and she was like, "Wow, it is no excuse for other countries." The problem in Singapore was similar, at least, to what was happening in Western Africa and other post-colonial countries, but it was also different. The Chinese are actually foreigners. They are the biggest ethnic group in Singapore. And before Lee Kuan Yew, you see, what was happening was race riots. The Chinese were airing just their horn. And this is one of the reasons why I think trouble is brewing in Lagos with this new found. It isn't newly found, but in Lagos right now there are issues about claims that Igbo people are airing just their own, and this is actually a big problem that the government should be looking at, but but they are not, and we should be paying attention to the accusations and all, and the conversations and all. But I don't think the government is wise to actually pay attention to it. But no, let us get out of the way. During Singapore's, before Lee Kuan Yew, the Malays went to war against against the Chinese, because the Malays are the indigenous people of Singapore. They are about 15%. And Chinese were about 70 plus percent, which actually helped stabilize the country in a way. But the indigenous people had no jobs. So they were fighting and all, and the country was in shambles before Lee Kuan Yew actually stepped in as an authoritarian to stabilize the country. And Lee Kuan Yew, being an authoritarian, actually made sure Chinese were actually hiring people across the board, and everyone wasn't actually hiring their own kind, basically. So that is what tribalism actually stunted the growth of Singapore, and they were infighting between these five ethnic groups. And the way Singapore actually solved it was by rotating presidency. The present president of Singapore isn't qualified to be. He wasn't voted for. Just imagine that you could actually become a president if you actually fit the criteria, and you could become president without a single vote. That is how Singapore is today. I don't think that will work in Nigeria, because there are about more than 300 ethnic groups in Nigeria. So how do you rotate the presidency? That is Singapore. The second one is Rwanda. Rwanda, before Paul Kagame, they were at each other's throat. The Hutu were killing the Tutsis were killing the Hutus. There were wars. There were rules that you shall not, the Hutu commandment, you shall not marry this kind of Tutsis, because they they betray and they cheat the Hutus, and this didn't come out of the void alone. The Belgians actually favored the Tutsis when they were governing the place. Before the favoritism of the Belgians, the Rwandans, because they united before the Belgians, before colonization, you say the Hutu and the Tutsis, they are the Tutsi king. They actually favored the Tutsi again, And when democracy was introduced, this about a couple of years later, just like our own in Nigeria, anarchy happened. The Hutu went to war with the Tutsis in the hope of actually cleansing them. They had commandments. They had things to actually unleash. And they used machetes and they killed people in matter of days. But when Paul Kagame came in, he came and actually stabilized the country. And now, the reason why the country can endure right now is because they have no freedom of expression. When you mention favoritism by one ethnic group, you go to jail. That was how they were able to stabilize their country. And when Paul Kagame is gone, they will go to each other's throat again and start killing each other. That is why stabilizing using an authoritarian isn't safe. It is not safe. The same thing with Libya. Libya had several ethnic groups. Arabs, Bedouins, Gaddafi's ethnic group, and he favored them. And once the authoritarian was rid of, the ethnic groups, the Bedouins, the Arabs, and all of them, they went to war with each other, which created the Arab Civil War, and the country hasn't gotten itself together since then. You see, lack of national identity that can actually stabilize the country, and when an authoritarian comes in and the authoritarian is removed, it creates problem. The same thing with Iraq, the Shia and Sunni. The Sunnis were actually favored under the Ottoman Empire. The Sunnis were favored with the British, and Saddam Hussein was also a Sunni who favored the Sunni. And when the authoritarian was toppled, Saddam Hussein was removed, the Shias just went to war with the Sunnis, and they just started killing them, just like it is happening right now in Assad, Syria, that some ethnic groups were actually going to war. They are killing people on the streets because the authoritarian has been removed. The same thing that happened with Nigeria. You see, we didn't get along, and when that actually happened, when the British left, we had about 6 years of ethnic tension. The Akintola was accusing Igbo people of hiring their own. The same thing that is happening right now, the same accusation that is going on right now, which actually created the civil war in Nigeria. And the same thing with is it Muritala Mohammed or one Amadu Bello. Amadu Bello was actually accusing Igbo people of hiring them, that they are using federal power to actually put people in the place. And a coup actually happened that comprised of mostly Igbo man, just one Yoruba man, and they took it as an attack on the north, and the northerners actually went on a pogrom towards Igbo people, and the civil war actually happened. The differences and the unique differences in all ethnic groups actually compounded to the brutality of what happened with the civil war. You see? So you can actually see the political implication of multi-ethnicity. In the absence of multi-ethnic groups, these things would not happen. We would just be united, and we focus on actually solving the problems that preoccupy us. And the story is the same for most countries in Western Africa, and most countries in Africa, most countries in the Middle East, because they were colonized, and they were you put some Druze, you put some fire worshippers, you put some Muslims together, you put some Shia and Sunni, and they just go to war with each other. And you see, since the civil war, people have used this tribalism to get elected. I mean, tribalism could actually be a cover for the wrong president to get into power, for him to put his cronies into position, and you see, that is where we are right now. That is just the same story repeating itself. You can read the news, just the same story repeating itself. This ethnic group, this ethnic group, this ethnic group. And that is where we are. And what is my solution to this? You see, I will repeat it again because people might not understand. The way to fix this is by actually creating a story that is all our story. Tribalism can be solved in two ways. It's either you separate people, let them go on their own independently to forge their own destiny, or you create a bigger tribe. A bigger tribe that wouldn't actually make you less of Yoruba, that wouldn't make you less of Igbo, that won't make you less of Hausa, less of Fulani, or whatever your ethnic group is. You won't have to actually relinquish your ethnic group or the pride in your ethnic group or whatever you have in it to actually become this new identity that we are forging that can actually unite us. And that is the way to actually do it. And that is what I intend to do, to create a bigger tribe that can actually connect us, Like, we are fingers. I want to create a big hand that we can exist on. A big hand that the fingers, Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa can actually exist on. And I want a singular body. That is what, I don't plan on this happening just in Nigeria, because every West African country actually has this problem. So I think what we can do is, if we can get it right here, which I think we can, this formula can actually be used in other West African countries that are facing the similar problems we are facing. That is how I actually plan on doing that. And from this moment onward, I will just keep talking about my work and how it actually goes into these things happening in Nigeria.